Okay, for the purpose of the camera, can you tell me your name, please?
Michael Franti.
And where are we today, Michael?
We are in Birmingham at the Academy.
Right on.
And ready to rock the house.
So, tell us about it. Let's take it right back to the start, mate. Did you grow up musical? Are you from a musical family?
Well, I grew up in a family where my mother played organ in the church, and all my brothers and sisters played instruments, and I was the only one who didn't play an instrument. And there was 5 of us in the house. There was constantly music being played all the time. But I listened to the radio and played and listened to my brothers and sisters' records all the time. And then when I got into high school, we started a little sort of punk ska band and played a few gigs, just around the school and stuff. We played one gig in an actual bar. And then when I got into university, my room where I lived was right above the campus radio station. So I would listen to music all the time and hear the bass lines coming up through the floor, and I decided to buy myself a bass, and I would just hear the bass lines and practice them. And that's really when I caught the music bug. I was inspired by all kinds of rebellious music, hip hop, punk rock, anything that was somebody was saying something from their heart. Reggae was a big inspiration for me too. Fantastic.
Can you remember the first gig that sort of blew you away in that way?
Well, the first gig that blew me away in that way was Linton Kwesi Johnson. I came and I saw him perform in a small town where I lived. It was a really small gig. It was 50 people there, and we meaning a couple of friends of mine had won tickets on the radio to go see the show, and we didn't know anything to expect, and we stood in the back of the room, and then when Linton came out on stage, he read this poem, Sonny's Letter, and he did it just a cappella, this really booming bass voice coming out of this tiny man in a suit, and then out walked the Dennis Bavell dub band and kicked into this really heavy dub behind him, and he delivered the same poem over top of that, and I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. I was really moved by that. And I'd always had this idea that I wanted to put themes of social justice and really not just political things, but the idea that some people are left out in society, some people don't have a voice or unheard, and or discriminated against. And that came from growing up in a family where I was adopted, and my parents, the Frantis who adopted me, were Finnish American. They had 3 kids of their own, and they adopted myself and another African American son. So even at times within my own family, I felt like an outsider, and certainly in the schools that I went to and the neighborhood I lived in, I felt like an outsider. So I've always felt that same calling to speak to that voice for whoever it is.
So tell me about, where did the first outing for you live come from?
Well, we started this group of friends who would put on parties in San Francisco. We'd put on after-hours parties. We'd sell booze till 5 or 6 in the morning when all the bars were closed. And we'd have DJ spin. Either 1 or 2 of my friends would spin DJs, and then we'd invite all kinds of artistic people to come down. Painters and fashion designers and all kinds of interesting creative people. And we decided at one point that we were going to do a poetry event, but we started using big pieces of metal and banging on these pieces of metal and reciting poetry over it, and that became the Beatniks, which was my first band. And so we did more of that and got in a van and started touring around the country and playing at punk rock clubs, and eventually toured over here with Billy Bragg, and then on our own, and then with Fugazi and other all kinds of great punk rock bands and festivals and stuff. And then when that band ended, Disposable Heroes started, and we started sampling those industrial sounds and using drum machines and samplers to create this sort of soundscape that we did for television, The Drug of the Nation. And U2 started using our song Television as the opening for their Zoo TV tour. And so they invited us to come out on tour with them. So we went from being in this tiny van driving around the country to still being in a tiny van driving around the country, but following U2 to these big stadium shows that they were playing and opening for them. And then after that band ended and '94 we started up with Spearhead, and I always felt like as a performer, if you wanted to play live, it was better to have like a group of 5 musicians who could play and who you could change things up, and you could always do new stuff, and rather than it being so connected to just being a DJ and a rapper, And so over the years as we've done, we've been a live band, and play every style of music that comes to our heart and to our mind, and just try to find the best way to communicate this idea of celebrating diversity. That's really what my message is today. It's not, I don't really have like a strident political message like save the whales or one specific thing, but I believe that when people have an open mind and an open heart, they become more compassionate to whatever is happening in the world, where we see people or we see the planet suffering. And that's what I want to achieve through music. It's not just specific to one goal or one political party or one message, but it's about opening people's hearts and minds.
Fantastic, thank you. So when did it really take off for Spearhead and yourself?
Well, in '94 we had our first video, Hole in the Bucket, get played on MTV, and that was a trip because it was the time in America where MTV was king. It's like if you had a song on MTV, suddenly everybody in every shopping mall in America knew who you were. And so with Hole in the Bucket, that happened, and we started touring around the country. And at the time, most hip hop was a DJ and a rapper, but we were a band, so we were kind of one of a handful of hip hop bands like the Roots and the Goats, and who went out and were able to perform really live sets, live concerts, and ever since that time we just we kept evolving, and our audience kept growing, and it took us a long time. Like we were successful in Europe and in Australia and in Japan before we were successful in America.
Okay.
And a few years ago we had a big hit in America. It was our first time ever having a hit on the radio. In 20 years of being a musician, I never had a song on the radio in America. And so suddenly we became a very popular band there, and started touring big places, and kind of stopped coming to Europe for a while. We were just things were so successful in America, and so now we're back in Europe, and we just wanted to come back here and get our music out here again.
Fantastic, thank you. And so we're into some of the Worldshift questions now about the Worldshift values. What does peace mean to you?
Well, peace means to me ease of heart. It means that when we're not so worried about what's happening in the past, we're not so obsessed with what's going to happen in the future, but we're in the present moment. And that's the peace that we see inside of ourselves. In terms of what we call world peace, it's not merely the absence of war, but Martin Luther King said it's the presence of justice. So when we have justice, we see peace, and what that means is economic justice, when people have jobs and opportunities and feel like they have freedom, they're able to say what they want and go where they please and make these decisions about their lives. And they're free from war and tyranny, and they have security and safety in their life. And when you have those things, then the other things are more easily attainable. That peace of mind, that peace of heart, that can be achieved when you have those things. It's not that it can't be achieved in war, but it's much easier when you provide peace, safety, jobs, opportunity for people. They're less likely to strap a bomb on their body and walk into a supermarket. And then finally, it's like peace is coexistence with the universe, really, And so in our sense, it's most easy to explain that through coexistence with the planet and being as connected as we can and ecologically sound, and thinking about the 7 generations to come in terms of what we consume and buy.
Thank you. You've already touched on it and made the connection between peace and justice. Anything? Can you elaborate on justice and what does that mean?
Well, justice is obviously, fairness, as we've always seen the scales, the balance that's achieved. And so in every situation, what I feel justice is that people have opportunities, and that there's not necessarily everyone having the same opportunities. It's impossible to achieve that. But when a person has a dream or an idea, that they're able to think within their mind that it somehow is attainable for me. And if you're living under constant stress of economics or tyranny from marauding soldiers or something like that, or worried that police are going to barge into your home at any point in the day, you can't have that. You can't. Your dreams are stifled. And so to me, justice is the ability for each person to imagine that their dream could be possible, and then to be able to go and achieve it.
Fabulous, thank you. What does sustainability mean to you?
Well, sustainability is so often thought of as just, are the trees growing fast enough for us to cut them down again? And can we keep cutting down the trees fast enough for them to grow back? But the reality is that sustainability has to include human beings. And, for example, I was in Indonesia recently, and there's this tribe called the Vogo people who grow bamboo. They've always grown bamboo, and in places all around them, all the old growth forest has been cut down. And so what they're doing now is they're working on ways of working with bamboo to compress it into basically like what is a hard wood. They have machines that do that. And this wood can be used in the same way that you would use, maple or oak or some other, ironwood or something from the forest. And it's their way of doing it is to create this model that creates jobs for their community and creates economic stability for their community. But if they cut down all the bamboo, then there's no more bamboo. So you see that when there's jobs and there's cultural sustainability, so that the people don't have to leave their communities to go get a job somewhere else, then environmental sustainability becomes very easy. Yeah. Because people are thinking we have to keep what is protecting us and what's growing for us. And I think that's a metaphor for the larger world. Like when we take care of people and when we use resources in a sustainable way and also help culture to survive, then the things work together and sustainability is easy. Fantastic, thank you.
And does music still have the power to change things?
Music has the power to change things. The best thing that music can change is your moment. We put on music to satisfy our mood, to satisfy our emotional well-being. And when we have the expectation that, gosh, the world is not changing fast enough, sometimes we quit, we give up. But it's music that we often turn to remind us that, things can be better, they can be different, and we can get through this day. Sometimes that just means the energy to get up in the morning and make lunch for your kids to get them to school in the morning. Sometimes it's hard just to do that, Yeah. And sometimes music has the power to move the mass mind, and to be able to change the culture's ideas about things. A good example for that recently is the change that we see in America about the attitude about freedom of marriage and the opportunity for gay people to be seen as whole citizens in our country. And it's come in part through music, through the messages that have been in music, and through gay artists who have come out, and through just the celebration that is acceptance and diversity.
Lovely. That diversity is one of our values too, and we also promote common unity. But you also sing a lot about love, and in particular love songs.
Yeah.
Where do you get your inspiration from these? Do you have a life partner?
Yeah, I have a woman in my life named Sarah, who's a fantastic, amazing person. She's an emergency room nurse, so she sees people when they're at their most vulnerable, and every day at the end of a shift or at the end of my night when I'm finished, we'll get on the phone and I'll ask her, and she'll ask me too, who did you make feel significant today? And then we'll talk about, some person that we help to make feel significant. And I feel like that's really what celebrating diversity is. It's not just saying, oh, I'm happy that, we're all here in this world, but we never connect. We never relate to each other. It's going out of your way to making sure that you've made someone feel significant who, in another way, who wasn't feeling that way, or who was feeling left out or unheard. And in that's how we celebrate diversity, is reaching out to people.
Fabulous, thank you. Now, you mentioned that you don't necessarily have one burning single political issue, but if you could shift just one thing, what would it be?
Well, if there was one thing I would shift in the world, I think it's just mindfulness. I want people to become more aware and question the things that we consume, the way that we connect to others, the way that we nurture ourselves, and that's where true wellness comes. We always hear in America, especially right now, about healthcare and the importance of healthcare. But I prefer the term self-care. It's like, what did you do today to take care of yourself that didn't mean going and getting a prescription for this pill? Did you run? Did you practice yoga? Did you eat something healthy? Did you connect with someone? Did you laugh? Did you dance? Did you vote? Did you do something in your neighborhood to contribute to the greater good, to contributing to that which is greater than yourself? And so that's really the message that I feel the strongest today, because it applies to everywhere we go. And everywhere I go, I get involved in local political issues, national political issues, whatever they are. But they always seem to come back to that same thing, which is, do we have empathy for others? And are we creating business, jobs, opportunities that are empathic for the greater good, not just for one small interest?
Again, thank you. Fabulous answer. Now, you sing about that all the time, but how do you look after yourself? How do you be mindful and keep yourself in the presence and present and ground yourself?
Well, I run and I practice yoga. Those are my two main ways. Right now, I've also been working a lot on nutrition, not just with myself, but with my family. My son has recently been diagnosed. He's 15. He's recently been diagnosed with a rare form of a kidney disorder, and we're trying to find ways that we can help his body to heal without using prescription drugs that have all kinds of horrible side effects attached to them. So our whole family has gone through a renewal of not just eating whatever we think we need or see in front of us, but really being mindful of our nutrition and how it affects our body on a daily basis.
You've recently had a musical collaboration with a friend of Worldshift, Gaudi. What do you think of Gaudi? How do you make of him? What do you think of his music?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. It's uplifting. It's inspiring, and that's what I feel like the world needs today. It's just more music that makes people feel like they can stand up a little bit taller and face what their day is about.
Who else is doing that for you right now?
Musically, there's an artist, Sona Rele, who's a brand new artist here in the UK, who's recently signed to Motown in the States, and we've just done a collaboration with her. But I love all kinds of music. It's not just one, like artist or one person. The other day I was with my son who's 15, and we went to the Childish Gambino concert in the States, which is one of the best concerts I've ever seen, and it was really exciting to be there with my son and to feel like I'm enjoying this as much as my kid is, and I think that's kind of like the key to youth, is to be able to stay fresh with, exciting music, exciting culture, and to be able to experience it with all generations, people ahead of you, and people who are coming before you.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you to do something relatively corny and say something like, "Hey world shifters, all the freaky people make the beauty of the world."
Sure. Hey world shifters, this is Michael Franti, and all the freaky people make the beauty of the world.
Michael Franti, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.